So here we are, the conclusion of this arc. And can I just say the music is really good in this arc? Funnily enough, since Ahsoka isn't in the prequels, we always kind of knew something would happen with her. But I'll be completely honest, I didn't think they were going to go the direction of having her bow out of the Order. I think it was a good direction, especially considering Rebels. But I was a little bit surprised by this. We notice that the military is trying to show an increasing amount of control over the Jedi Order. Now, I've been pointing this out this entire run, but it's just been a slow escalation of, okay, well, we want to have jurisdiction over this. Well, now we want to try her in a military tribunal, etc., etc. Speaking of which, anybody else notice that the military tribunal is proceeded over by the Chancellor himself? I just point that out because I have this weird impression that Palpatine, that is to say the office of the Supreme Chancellor, is more connected directly to the military affairs than has previously been indicated, which would make sense. There's this nice bit where the Anakin is pacing, and Ahsoka's like, "Master, you're not helping." And he's like, "I know, I don't know what to do." And she's like, "I know, I don't either." And it's just a nice little moment between two friends, which I want you to keep in mind for just a moment here. Because then the council tries to do something that is really quite stupid. The council tries to play at politics. The council was in a political position to try and stand their ground on this one, to try Ahsoka as a Jedi within the confines of the Jedi Order, rather than capitulating to the military. Instead, they decided to do so as an attempt to gain political brownie points. But well, it's an amateur move, basically. It's such an amateur thing that they did, because what they effectively did is they said, you know what, we know that you're in the superior position here, so we'll do what you have to say, and maybe later you'll pay us back a bit, just a thought. It reminds me of Season 1 TNG's, the Federation's approach to diplomacy. Just rolling over for whatever it is that anyone else wants of them, that kind of a thing. So then there's this part where they talk about there's great evidence against you. No, there isn't. I mean, again, I've been playing Ace Attorney recently, but even ignoring that, there is very circumstantial evidence for this, especially for something this severe. I mean, think about this for a second. What is the actual evidence they have on their side of things? They saw a recording which showed the woman being strangled and had no audio. They showed she was caught in an area which also happened to contain these boxes of bombs. Yeah, that's it. That's their evidence. Now, apparently that was pretty damn convincing, because by the end of the episode we find out that she was actually found guilty by overwhelming verdict. I mean, can anyone else say drumhead? I mean, this is ridiculous. And this is, again, probably one of the reasons why this should have been kept as an internal affair of the council. But then again, even the council thinks she's guilty. Note that when she's brought up on the dais to talk to the council members, they mention this evidence. And there's this line that Windu says, which actually pissed me off a little bit, and I wrote it down here. Did Ventress help you to acquire the nanodroid weapons? There's a term for that kind of a question, and I forget the exact proper official term, so please forgive me. But it's a leading question. So someone's like, hey, this other person was there. Did other person help you to get the murder weapon? Implicitly implying that she is guilty in the very act of asking the question, which is actually something that's not allowed in certain courts, depending on the circumstances. Unless the witness is hostile, of course, but I don't want to get into that. And then there's this bit where Yoda admits the council is not in full agreement. They never say who doesn't agree with this. Based on evidence, I'd like to think that it's just Obi-Wan. No, I'm serious. I mean, I'd like to give some credits to Plo Koon, but ultimately, based on his actions, I would say Obi-Wan is the only one who actively opposed this and was like, no. This is dumb and stupid and wrong. So then Anakin and Padme both come in to help. And what I really like is the fact that This actually makes sense for the duo, for them to both play to their strengths. Anakin is going to go investigate on his own as the agent, and she is going to try and be the politician, the one who try and talk her way through it. In fact, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, well, they're going to be able to stall the trial or win on a technicality, and then Anakin will figure out who the actual person is. No, apparently Padme's entire act is, or entire defense is so terrible that she lost by overwhelming vote, which again, based on the actual evidence at their disposal, is pathetic. Although you notice during the trial that Palpatine made a speech saying, basically, she's guilty. You caught that, right? And he didn't say, like, it's Ahsoka Tano is this evil person. It was more like, the Separatists are these evil people, and we can't afford to blah, 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 blah. I really wonder just exactly how rigged this whole thing was. I mean, if you were Palpatine, could you resist the urge to go ahead and have the Jedi try one of their own and have her legally and formally executed? I mean, come on. Oh yeah, do you notice Tarkin was pushing for the death penalty, right? I mean, sedition during a wartime makes sense, but ugh. Notice that Anakin is completely not playing around. In fact, I actually had an image in my head of how this fight between him and Ventress should have gone if... Well, for example, if Anakin really lost it, if he just completely went full tilt into the dark side in this moment. Now, he doesn't. But I do also like how Ventress accuses them of abandoning her, that is to say, of abandoning Ahsoka. And that's the one thing that really pierces through Anakin, because he feels the same way. Again, as much as this entire story arc is about Ahsoka Tano, it is also equally about Anakin Skywalker, and his feelings about the Order, and their policies, and how things are going. You'll note, by the way, that things only really got done when Anakin basically went off and did things by himself. You can't tell me he didn't remember that in the future. Anywho, so I do like how Ventress basically says, it basically helps, goes out of her way to try and help as much as she can. And while Anakin is still clearly angry, he just says, if you're lying, and then runs. He's just off. And later on he admits that he doesn't think Ventress is lying, and he doesn't think Ventress did it. Funnily enough, Anakin is not exactly a great judge of character. I mean, look at his circle of friends, right? But at the same time, I find that interesting that in his heart of hearts, he really didn't think Ventress did this, because why would she? This situation really actually makes no sense, logically speaking, if you assume Ventress did do it. There's just too many variables that align in an opposite direction based on the evidence that's available. Which brings me, of course, to the scene where he confronts Barriss. That is an awesome scene. Where he just walks in and is like, hey, Barriss, zook, grabs the lightsaber. It's like the first thing he does. I was just like, yes! And then Barriss is like, oh, yeah. Grabs the lightsabers, and of course he's like, oh, hey, maybe you should have gotten rid of these. No, I think they suit me. Yeah, no, so she has completely ousted herself at that point. All bets are off, and she tries to flat out kill him to get away. Funny thing, I mentioned earlier how someone, Barriss, could not possibly have taken out Ventress in a one-on-one fight, and was significantly challenging Ahsoka. Both of those things I question, but I'm willing to let slide. The fact that she actually puts up this much of a fight to Anakin is almost hysterical. Anakin, who I remind you is exceptionally pissed right now, fighting Barriss, who obviously is using the dark side, but probably doesn't really know what she's doing. Regardless of that, it is a good fight, and it was very enjoyable to see him basically slowly crush her, because that is effectively what happened. Also, notice the kid is back, just for a one-line cameo there from the finding their lightsabers thing. I can't remember the name of the episode, but you know what I'm talking about. So Anakin grabs her, drags her to the thing and says, hey, so yeah, we've got the real criminal here. And what's funny is Anakin actually has the eyewitness testimony of quite a few people at that point. So if it had actually gone to trial, if he had to prove that Barriss did it, in other words, if Barriss didn't confess, because she didn't have to, if Barriss didn't confess, he would have a large amount of evidence to prove that it was her. Funny thing, I mean, she had the lightsabers. He has many witnesses to that, including the actual guards and the kids, and he himself is willing to testify to the matter, and he is willing to testify that she said this. There's probably recorders that showed some of this fight. Point being, there are plenty of things that would now show this, and I think that's one of the reasons why Barriss just went ahead and confessed. That way she could have her 5 minutes of time on the podium, right? We are wrong. The Jedi are wrong. Blah, 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 blah. Now, two things before I really continue. First, why do you think Barriss went down this route? Really? I have to admit, this kind of was a come out of left field thing for me personally, because, I mean, first of all, Barriss wasn't exactly that well established prior to now, but second, and far more importantly, she just decides that the Jedi are wrong and evil because they are the violent perpetrators of war, and therefore she decides that the best possible thing to do is to bomb this thing and then go way out of her way to frame Ahsoka so that she can get away with it. What? I'm legitimately shocked at this. Also, they never actually explain how Barriss was able to infiltrate the Imperial prison facility and kill all the people in order to frame Ahsoka. She just kind of gets away with this a little bit too easily. In fact, to be perfectly blunt, it's astonishing how close she came to just flat out getting away with this. The only things that got in her way was Anakin Skywalker and Asajj Ventress, so... Second thing I want to comment on is how much the Jedi Order can piss off. There's a scene which actually legitimately angers me, where they're all saying their apology to her. And I'm putting that in quotes because Plo Koon apologizes. Anakin apologizes. The Council apologizes. This was your great trial. We see this now. I wanted to smack him. That... I cannot put into words how much that angered me to see the Order trying to pull that kind of revisionist historical revisionism and trying to justify their actions and their petty little dark side. I mean, you see the shirt I'm wearing, right? In all seriousness, though, that did piss me off because it just smacks of exactly what is, let's be honest with ourselves, the core problem with the Jedi Order. They firmly believe they're right without even in the face of being wrong, and constantly try to not self-examine themselves to make sure that they are right. So then she says no. She decides to leave the Order. Great scene, by the way. And Anakin rushes after her. And the best part is everything he's saying about, no, you can't leave us, you can't leave the Order, blah, 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 blah. This is your home, this is a mistake. Everything he's saying, and it's so obvious based on the actor and based on the animation, it's so obvious that what he's saying is, don't leave me. That Anakin himself, as I've been pointing out this entire run, isn't really that connected to the Order. And he admits this flat out, I understand wanting to walk away from the Order. And of course her response is, I know you do. In my opinion, this really was the final hammer point. As of this moment, I think Anakin's path was now set. After everything that happened in this arc, there was no turning back. It was only a matter of time before he eventually really did turn his back on the Order, and inevitably gave in to the dark side. That's just my opinion, though. Hope you guys have enjoyed. I'll give you a bit of a confession next episode, which we will get to next time.